The Awakening Conference 2023.
In the quest of leadership, God gave me the opportunity of becoming an executive director at a very early age of years. I was about 32, 33 years. I was already an executive director of a non-for-profit organization in Botswana, which is an NGO dealing with the marginalized communities. It was a multinational organization, and this organization dealt with rural development and community development. And it had about 200 employees from all over the world. And at age 33, I was already the leader or the CEO of that organization. So you can imagine I made a lot of mistakes. And that's what I want to start with. I want to say that in the quest of leadership is a journey. Nobody can say that they already arrived. We all learn, and we learn through mistakes sometimes. And if we can learn through the successes of others, that's the best thing. But sometimes we have to learn through a hard way. And currently, for those who came late, God has given me to be the leader of a faith-based organization, which is a church. I am a pastor at City Christian Center, and this is the organization that has put together this event. And again, I find myself to be the leader. So it is a privilege. Now, why did I say all this? It's because I want to define leadership. From since day one, when I had no experience, up till today, when I have a little bit of experience, what is my definition of leadership? What is leadership? I know different people will have different definition of leadership. My definition of leadership, so you can bear with me with this definition, is that leaders are people who solve problems which others have created. That's my definition of leadership. And if you are in the corporate world, leaders are those people who solve problems bosses have created. So a boss creates a problem and the leader solves the problem. And if I had time, I could have defended the way I define leadership. But let me take you through a journey. In every place, from a grassroots all the way to the global level. At home, if there is no food, if we do not have shelter, and a person is responsible and accountable and answerable, is the father, I believe. And what do we say? We say he is the leader of the family. Why? Because he solves the problem of the family. If we go all the way to the national level, a person who solves national problems, they don't sleep, they don't rest, and they're so concerned that national problems are solved. We call them national leaders. And all the way in between, from the national to the global level, global leaders solve global problems. National leaders solve national problems. Company leaders solve company problems. And organizational leaders solve what? Organizational problems. If somebody comes to my office and they ask me, are you the boss man here? I normally say, no, I'm a leader. I'm not a boss here. Why? Because bosses create problems and leaders solve the problems. So my question to you is, who are you? Are you a boss or are you a leader? If you solve problems, you are a leader. Now, who are the leaders? We said leaders are those who solve problems at all levels, and the impact of our leadership is determined by the magnitude of the problems that we solve. The impact of our leadership is determined by the magnitude of the problems which we solve. If in your company you solve very small little problems only, your impact is very small and you can easily be replaced because your impact is very small. But if in your company you solve major problems, your impact is big, your value in that company is huge. Another question I want to pose to us as leaders: what do people celebrate about your achievement? What problem have you solved that make people to celebrate you? May God help us that when we die, they will miss us for the problems that we have solved. They will say, if so-and-so was here, this could have never happened. And sometimes that is the measure of the impact as leaders we have in the society. What are they going to celebrate, or what are we going to be missed for? Some of us, when we are not there, people celebrate. They say, thank God, he's not here. The boss is not here. Have you worked in those organizations where when the leader is not there, everybody celebrates? Even in our homes, when dad is not home, kids celebrate. Children play and they are happy. And when we show up, all the children run into their hiding because a father has come in. Is that the kind of leadership which we have in our families? We are not celebrated, we are tolerated. People have to tolerate our presence. May God help us that we are celebrated. And we know what is our role. Our role is we are problem solvers. Question number 2. What do leaders do in order to solve these major problems that is on their shoulders? There are 3 things which I came up with. You can agree with me or you can add some more. But I thought when I was studying, I thought there are 3 things that are very important for us as leaders to remind ourselves. Number 1 is the work of a leader is to organize priorities. If you are a leader, doesn't matter at what level. So long as you have responsibilities, your number 1 job is ordering priorities. And I have learned one thing in my life, and in few organizations I've worked with. I don't know if that is a problem in your organization. there is a confusion and misunderstanding and misconception between what is urgent and what is important. Many times we think what is urgent is important, and we start crisis management when not necessarily we need to do crisis management. And sometimes we leave what is supposed to be very important and we go for what is urgent, and we miss out great opportunities because we went for fire brigade, we went for fire brigade management, and we forgot that this might be something very important an organization needs to be doing. But we went for something which is very urgent, but not necessarily important. So us as leaders, I want to remind us, at whatever level we are leaders, if it is in our families, if it is in our companies, if it is in our organizations, as leaders, how do we solve problems? We need to have a matrix. We need to have a rubric which tells us what is important and what is urgent. And then we need to do the cross-matching. It can be important, but it might not be necessarily urgent. It can be urgent, but not necessarily important. And do the rubrics and see when do we order, what priorities come first. When do we order our resources and manage them correctly? And that leads me to number 2. Number 2 is leaders solve problems by allocating resources. If you're a leader, I believe you'll agree with me. Our big job is to allocate resources. We look at our budget, if it is financial resources. Where does this money go? This is the salary. The mother's salary and the father's salary, and these are our needs. What is the most important thing we need to do with this little money we have? That is the work of a leader. If somebody has a poor management of finance, and then half the month the family is out of money, what do we say about this family? We say this family doesn't have leadership. Companies, exactly the same. Organizations, exactly the same. The work of a leader is to allocate resources correctly. And that's what scratches the head of a leader. Where do I put capital? Where do I put human resource? How do I allocate? Who is best doing what? Where should I put this person? This person is talented. This person is good in that. Where do I put this person? That's the work of a leader, to allocate resources and make sure that these resources are well managed. If we do not manage our resources well, soon we'll be running out of our resources. And what is it going to be said about us? We are poor leaders. The third thing which leaders do is we manage time. Now, this is a big thing. When we were talking out there, we were sitting waiting to come here, and one of the things we were discussing is about time management. How do we manage our time? One time I had an opportunity to talk with student leaders, people who are leading students, and one of the things which I realized that time management actually is life management. If we can manage our time, in other words, we are managing our life. If we are wasting our time we can easily say we are wasting our life. And we as leaders, one of the arts that we need to develop, and I believe most of you will agree with me, and for parents, I believe you'll agree with me, that's what we teach children, how to manage their time. Every one of us has 24 hours. What do you do with your 24 hours? I heard somebody say, the richest man in the world, I don't know who is that right now. Is it Elon Musk or I don't know. Who is the richest man now in the world? Huh?
Arnold somebody.
Okay. Now, the richest man in the world and the poorest man in the world, God has given them all 24 hours. It matters a lot on how we manage our 24 hours of a day. And even companies, all companies have 24 hours. Successful organizations, successful families, successful leaders, and non-successful companies and leaders and businesses, they all have 24 hours. How do we manage our time? Time is one of those resources. When you don't have it, you realize how much valuable it is. And when you have abundance of it, you kind of don't realize how valuable it is. This is a paradox with time. Good leaders know how to manage time. And I hope they're not going to send me a small little piece that I'm running out of time. I will reject it if it comes. Now, this leads us to the third question of how do leaders execute? How do leaders do their job of solving problems that bosses and others have created? In other words, you can write, for those who are writing, what are the principles of effective leadership? And I decided to just go on 3 of them for the sake of time. If I had time, I would talk a lot about that and what I have learned through a very rough experience. But number 1, how do leaders impact? How do leaders lead? How do leaders solve problems? Number 1 is by modeling. Modeling means by being an example. One very, very successful American football coaches told one of a very, very talented player something which is very popular and we all know. This player was telling the coach of what he's going to do in order to bring championship to the team. And this very successful coach told the player, and this is what I want to quote to you and me as leaders: do not tell me what you're going to do, but show me what you're going to do. Good leaders show what leadership is and what is to be done. But poor leaders only tell, they don't do what they tell others to do. So I want to challenge us as leaders in different areas of our lives. We need to be leaders by example. We need to be leaders by modeling what we say. If we tell people to come early, we need to be what? Early. And the biggest challenge for parents, I think all of parents agree with me. The biggest challenge of raising children is to use this phrase, do what I tell you, don't do what I'm doing. Children will look at you, especially today's children, they will look at you and they will tell you, no. Don't tell me, show me. So number one principle of good and effective leadership, of how do we solve problems, is by showing what needs to be done. We need to be the doers and not only the tellers. Tellers are bosses. Bosses tell us what to do, and they themselves don't do anything. They're sitting behind their desks, playing around with their cell phones. And they tell us to do all these donkey jobs. And they create all these problems. But when you go to their office and tell them, okay, I have failed here, help me, they don't have any help to offer. That's why I say leaders solve problems which bosses have created. That is number one. Show, not only tell. Number two, how do we lead? Is by being responsible and by being accountable as leaders. If there is any credit, you are a leader of a department, you are the leader of the organization, and the organization did very well, who takes the credit? We are used that the leader takes the credit. But I want to challenge us by saying that the credit belongs to the team, not to the leader. It belongs to the team. You could not accomplish what you have accomplished single-handed. It is those people who work with you. And being a good leader is when there is success, when there is an achievement, all the credit goes to other people. But what about when there are insufficiencies? When there are shortcomings? Who do we blame? The leader. So the leader reflects all the credit but takes all the heat. One time, I had an issue with a local bank. So I was dealing with a local bank. And I was dealing with the manager of the bank. And there was something which was not going well. And I was really complaining. You know, these days I can complain. And I was really complaining. And I was sweating, I was red on my face, and I was really complaining. And the manager realized that I was really angry with what has happened. And I was giving him the peace of my mind. But in a good way, not in a bad way. But he realized that I was not happy with the service. And this is what the manager told me. He said, Lucas, you know what? Our young people these days are not serious. These millennials, I don't even know which universities have gone. They didn't do this. And I looked at him and I asked him, are you not their leader? And he said, yes, they report to me. So he shifted all the blame to who? To his subordinates. And he wanted to be as clean as possible. And I looked at him and I said, you need to take responsibility. You are the leader, you are the manager, and you are working with these millennials. Train them. You are working with these millennials. Develop them. Teach them work ethics. Teach them how they're supposed to deal with clients and customers. When I complain to you, I won't complain to them. I'll complain to you. You are the leader. You need to do something. And he was shifting all the blame to the millennials and to the system, the way the system, the education system doesn't prepare our young men to work hard in the workplace. He was blaming everybody else except himself. That is the type of leadership we have these days. We are nothing but a bunch of excuses. Whenever we are supposed to be held accountable for things that have gone wrong, we want to do what? To point fingers to others. And when credit is given to our subordinates, what happens? We become so mad. They need to know who is running the show here. And that's what we say. They need to know who is the boss here. Sure, you are the boss, but probably you're not the leader. How do we do leadership? We do leadership by being accountable and by being responsible. We give credit to the team, and whenever there are insufficiencies, it is our responsibility. We are the one who say we are sorry. If our organization has missed anything, we as the leaders, we are the one who become accountable. And we take that responsibility. That is to be a leader. And lastly, we lead by humility. There was a survey which was done to 1,400 businesses, the ones which are very successful, 100 very successful businesses in the world, and the leaders of those businesses were interviewed. And they were asked, what is one of the things that contributed to their success as leaders? And this is one thing which they said. They said that we have learned to be servant leaders and not bossy leaders. They have learned to be servant leaders and not bossy leaders. Humility is not a weakness. Humility, in fact, is a strength, and very few people can go so low, because if you go very low, you don't have any height to fall anymore. In fact, there is a syndrome we call the God-man syndrome. A God-man syndrome is a disease whereby people are in their offices and they think that they are so powerful, they become gods of that small little organization. You cannot touch them. They are untouchable. You cannot criticize them. You criticize them, you are dead. You are fired. I mean, we become so powerful, so like almighty. We don't lead by humility. Servant leadership. And scriptures teach us the same. The teachings of Jesus. Jesus taught, whoever wants to be great amongst you should be your servant, should be a person that serves everybody. Now, there is this big question I want to finish. I can see Mr. Obado is ready, and I'm standing between you and your dinner. So I can tell most of you are ready to see me finishing. I'm going to finish. In a debate of the crisis we have in the world, a major question arises, and it says, if we have all these problems in our world, who do we need to hold accountable? So, There is one school of thought which says God is responsible. So they are pointing their fingers where? Up. They say what? God is responsible. And then there is another school of thought which says that no, God says it is men who are responsible. So there is finger pointing here. We point our fingers to God, and God is pointing fingers to us, that we are responsible for the problems that we have in the globe. And some of us say, no, if God really exists, if God really cares, he needs to take care of these problems. Because you know what? He is the boss. He's sitting up there. He is the boss. So there is this discussion which is going on. And one time I was studying what are these problems that we all talk about, and they affect everybody, every nation, every civilization is affected by these problems. And who should we hold accountable for these problems? And once I finish this, I will sit down. What are these problems? Number one, we have wars. We have famine. We have diseases like the pandemic. We have illiteracy and ignorance around the world. We have poverty. Who is responsible for that? We have injustices. We have lack of clean water around the world. We have unemployment. We have crime, which is very rampant in certain parts of the world and in certain neighborhoods, even our own neighborhoods. We have inequalities, unequal distribution of wealth. Every society in the world has that. Who is responsible for that? We have environmental issues. Some say global warming is a hoax. Some say it's a science, and everybody in between there. Everything in between there. Now we have these major problems. Who should we hold accountable? Why is God not doing anything if he's there and he cares? And what is man doing while this is his playground? So I've been listening to these two schools of thoughts. One school of thought says that God is like a father who comes into the room of his teenagers. And these teenagers have been playing in the room, and like an atomic bomb went off in that room. Everything is everywhere. Should the father clean the mess, or should the children clean the mess? So this school of thought says that man is responsible. But another school of thought says, no, this world belongs to him. This planet is his. And that's what he claims in the scriptures, that it belongs to him. So he needs to take care of it. This is my viewpoint, and it's going to be our conclusion. For those who are writing, I will say it slowly. God created the earth, which was perfect, and he gave it to mankind. And he gave mankind all he needs to make the planet Earth the best place to be before he calls us back home. If God has given us the earth as a gift, and if anything goes wrong, he holds us responsible. He has given us everything to make the planet Earth the best place to be. And that's why we are here. It is the responsibility of leaders. God works with leaders in order to make order in order to make the planet Earth the best place to be. God bless you so very much.
The Awakening Conference 2023.